All right, so on the Facebook group for Rotary Swing last week, somebody had posted up this link to Cameron Champ's swing and said, hey, I think this guy is following Rotary Swing to the T. Now, you guys know I don't follow the tour at all. I don't keep up with the tour players' swings or any other instructors for that matter. But then when I saw who was teaching him and this perception that he was a Rotary Swing guy, I had to dig a little deeper. And of course, as you guys saw in the Facebook group, I posted that this guy is ripe for a back injury and is definitely not a Rotary Swing guy. Now, of course, he's doing many Rotary Swing fundamentals. All tour pros do. But the stuff that he's being taught is leading him further and further away from Rotary Swing stuff and much, much closer to back injuries. So then as I took them, a little bit of time to look into this guy, apparently he's had back injuries for a long time, most of his career. He started working with the same instructor, I think, when he was 14. He's now a rookie on the tour. I did a quick cursory search and saw that he withdrew not only last week from a tour event citing a back injury, but he also did the same thing about a year ago in March 2019, citing a back injury. Not a good sign for a rookie who's young, fit, and flexible. And let me explain to you why. And I'm going to show you in just a moment with an actual example of a spine to show you what's going on with this so that you don't have to go through the same thing in your golf swing. So let me first talk about the perception of speed, because this is something that most golfers just don't understand, and it's perpetuated by instructors who also don't understand. So let me first quote this from this instructor, talking about his hands. If you look at his hands down here, obviously his left wrist is bowed, the right wrist is still arched back. He hasn't fully released the club yet. So what this instructor draws from this is his speed comes from the body. No, it doesn't. His speed comes from this massive angle that he's created, which is leverage, lag, and it's a force multiplier. When I did this study over a decade ago with TaylorMade Performance Labs, we did a study on all the tour pros' hip, hand speed, and shoulder speed, and the hip speed on average for the tour pros was about 10 miles an hour. That's not fast. Now, Cameron Champ swings at 130 miles an hour. So tell me how moving your hips at 10, and let's just say that he's above average because he's obviously swinging fast. Let's say he goes 50% faster than the average tour pro with his hips. Let's say he's going at 15 miles an hour. That's 50% faster. That's a huge difference. And I even doubt that that's true. But let's just give it the benefit of the doubt. At 15 miles an hour, how do you multiply 15 miles an hour into 130 miles an hour clubhead speed by, as this instructor says, speed coming from the body? It's completely nonsensical, impossible, and of course defies the laws of physics and most of all common sense. Spinning your hips any faster is not going to make that club go faster. But leverage, lag, is a force multiplier. It's what allows you to jack up a car with a little tiny jack and lift up a 4,000-pound vehicle without much effort. It's leverage. So the reason that Cameron Champ has all of this speed is because he has all of this leverage in his swing that he knows how to get rid of. Now, of course, the body is extremely important, but it's not the primary source of speed. It is leverage. In fact, lag makes up about 2/3 of everybody's golf swing speed, and that should be pretty commonsensical. If you've got a club moving 130 miles an hour, moving your hips a little bit faster isn't going to make much of a lick of difference. But let's talk to the back injury stuff. This is the first part of it. If the belief is that the way that you swing faster is to rip your hips faster or to turn your shoulders faster, move your body faster, you're going to get injured because it's not true, and there's only so fast that your body can move before you're completely off balance or putting yourself in very awkward and dangerous positions for your spine. And as you perpetuate that with bad instructional advice, it gets even worse, and that's where this next sentence really laid the groundwork for this video. It says, I also want to see his right ear more downward, showing that he's using his eyes to help with rotation and protect the neck and spine. Literally the exact opposite is true, and I'm going to show this to you with my spine example here in just a moment. But let me just explain to you what he's talking about here. He wants the right ear to be lower at this point, which will increase side bend. So if we look at this from both angles, imagine that his right ear was even lower to the ground, which would steepen his shoulders and increase the side bend or the curvature in his spine, which is now in the absolute best possible position to herniate a disc. Rotation with side bend is how you're going to hurt yourself. If you rotate your body aggressively through the shot and you try to do it fast because you believe that's going to produce speed, and you try to increase side bend by dropping your ear closer to the ground, I promise you that at some point you're going to be just like Cameron Champ and be struggling with back issues. So the idea that you swing faster by moving your body faster, and then you get your body into the most vulnerable position, your spine into the most vulnerable position possible to be a great golfer, pretty obviously nonsensical. Now let me show you an example with my little spine, and I'm going to show you exactly what's going on, how you herniate a disc, and why Cameron Champ will continue to struggle with his probably going to be short career on the PGA Tour.
All right, let's talk spinal injuries, because in the name of golf, it is one of the most common issues that people deal with, and the misinformation that's out there from so-called experts and golf instruction experts and biomechanic experts, it's so nonsensical it's not even funny. I'm going to explain to you why the advice that I just read to you on that article with that instructor is blatantly wrong. Obvious to anybody who's ever read any book on Anatomy 101 would know that this stuff is simply not true. And of course, I did a video on this a while back talking with one of our medical panel experts who backs Rotary Swing, Dr. Mitch Suppler, talking about herniated disc, bulging discs, and the way that you would create them in the golf swing, and how to, more importantly, obviously, how to avoid them. So I want to show you an example here with the spine and help you understand what's going on in Cameron Champ's body and this way that golf instruction is taught and how inaccurate it is to teach people how to move this way, to turn your body and then introduce this side bend, and how dangerous that is. All right, so in the golf swing, obviously there is rotation in the swing, and obviously I believe that because I called my company Rotary Swing, so obviously there is rotation there, but it's the way that we rotate, when we rotate, and how we rotate that matters. So in the golf swing and in your body in general, obviously the thoracic is where the majority of the rotation happens. Now, there's not much rotation down here in your lower back, even though that's where a lot of the pain for most golfers is felt with sciatica, herniated disc, and so on. So as you're moving from the thoracic spine, that's where the majority of rotation is going to happen. So when you're thinking about turning your chest to the target, which you should never ever do, but that is something that's commonly taught, you're putting a lot of shear force, a lot of rotational force, because the harder and faster you try and rotate, whether you're trying to rotate your pelvis faster, is putting a tremendous amount of shear force on your spine, or whether you're trying to turn your shoulders faster, it's just moving the levels where the shear force is happening up higher in the body. Obviously, if you're moving your pelvis quickly, the shear force that you're going to feel is going to be lower in the body and higher up if you move your shoulders and arms. So now what the problem is that this shear force is somewhat tolerable for the body. It doesn't like it, but it tolerates it pretty well. The other force that the spine really hates is compressive forces, and a great way to create that is to either jump off a building and land on your feet. It's going to compress your spine, or you can create side bend, which compresses one side of the disc, and this is typical of how you herniate a disc, because you just simply pinch it, bulge it, and you don't create, there's not enough space there, and you do that under severe load and stress, and then we can start bulging these discs. So now what really stinks about golf is that golf has rotational force and some side bend force, some shear force, some compressive force, excuse me. And so when you put those two together, that is the quickest way to blow out your back, to herniate a disc, to bulge a disc. So what does that look like? So we're going to rotate from the thoracic here, get a little tiny bit in the lumbar, and then we're going to introduce what that instructor was talking about. He wants to have his head dropped down even lower, which means taking your spine that is already twisted and bending it in two. Now, obviously, this doesn't even look very fun, because it's not healthy for your back to be in this severe side bend, twisted, rotated position. It is an absolutely devastating way to blow out your back, and it is very, very quick to do so. And the problem with this stuff is that so many instructors teach you to do exactly that. They want you to rotate your chest toward the target and then create all the side bend. And I'm telling you the exact opposite. I want to maintain space in this lower part of the body, reduce that side bend, reduce the rotation, reduce the shear force, so that you aren't putting your body in these compromised positions. And of course, you still produce tremendous amount of speed. You guys have seen my club head speed. I mean, I averaged 124 when I was playing professionally, maxed out at 129 without doing this to my spine. The simple fact of the matter is that's not where speed comes from, but the misconception and the misinformation that's being disseminated out there is that the faster you turn your hips, the faster you swing. It's not true at all. In fact, in that tailor-made performance lab study I did over a decade ago, I showed you guys that by not moving my hips at all, I only lost like 10 miles an hour club head speed. So now think about that for a second. Here's scientific empirical data. We did a study, we studied all the tour pros and said on average, the average tour pro's hips are moving about 10 miles an hour peak speed. That's it. Hand speed's only about 16. It's not fast, but you've still got something that's happening. Obviously we know what it is, but a lot of people think it's the opposite. Something that's happening that's taking the hand speed from 16 miles an hour and multiplying it to the club to getting it to go 120 miles an hour. No matter how much faster you move your body, it's not going to multiply that speed that much. So, and by proving to you, by not moving my hips at all and swinging the club, I was still able to swing at over 100 miles an hour without moving my body at all. That should tell you all that you need to know about body speed. Body speed is relatively irrelevant. Not that it doesn't play a part, of course it does. It's more important for sequencing though, because remember, the most important part of your job in the golf swing is to create, maintain, and release lag. That's it. That's where 2/3 of your speed comes from. The body speed that you're doing is really more about body sequencing. You can move relatively slowly and sequence your swing correctly, get your body to move correctly, maintain lag, and have the right post-up move to release it, and speed in the world is your oyster. Now let me take you to the gym for a second. I'm going to show you how to feel this for yourself because I don't want you to take just my advice for it or even our medical panel's advice on this stuff. I want you to feel for yourself what it feels like when you introduce the shear force and side bend into your golf swing. All right, so now I want you to feel this for yourself so that you can listen to your body. So you know when you do something incorrectly and your body's trying to give you some feedback, but some pain, some discomfort, you recognize not only that that pain is there for a good reason, but also how to get around it, how to correct it so that you don't have that pain. So you don't need a club at first. I'm gonna show you how to do it with the club in just a second. So here's all I want you to do. I want you to get yourself into an impact position and I'm gonna do it just face on and I'll show you down the line as well. So turn your hips as far as you can, turn your shoulders as far as you can so that your chest is essentially facing the target or about 45 degrees open. And now from here, drop your right ear and shoulder down as low as you can and tell me what you feel in your spine. From down the line, it's the same thing. So I'm going to turn and then tilt and add the side bend. And undoubtedly, you're going to feel discomfort in your lower back as you do this. The older you are, the more stiff you are, the worse this is going to be. If you're young, fit, and flexible, you might be able to get in here a little bit, but it's not going to feel awesome. And of course, in the swing, as we're getting into the release position, a lot of people are taught to keep turning into this side bend position like this. Oh, it doesn't feel good demonstrating it. And instead, what you want to do is try to maintain some spacing in your side, because the more that you drop, the more that you introduce side bend, right? If I'm dropping my right shoulder, my ear, I'm just adding side bend. Now combine that with rotational shear force, and we got a recipe for disaster. So be very, very, very careful what you read. Listen to your body more than anything. Your body is always trying to give you feedback on something. And so if you feel pain in the golf swing ever, don't take Jerry Kelly's advice, who said if he hit a good shot, or if he hit a shot and it didn't hurt, he knew it wasn't a good shot. That's not a healthy perspective. You can have a great golf swing and be completely pain-free, but you've got to listen to your body and you've got to understand that biomechanics is not a bad thing. It's important to understand what the real biomechanics are and how it affects the anatomy in your body when you're swinging a golf club.